هو الذي أنشأكم وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون قل هو الذي ذرأكم في الأرض وإليه تحشرون ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين فلما رأوه زلفة سيئت وجوه الذين كفروا وقيل هذا الذي كنتم به تدعون قل أرأيتم إن أهلكني الله ومن معي أو رحمنا فمن يجير الكافرين من عذاب أليم قل هو الرحمن آمنا به وعليه توكلنا فستعلمون من هو في ضلال مبين قل أرأيتم إن أصبح ماؤكم غورا فمن يأتيكم بماء معين صدق الله العلي العظيم پر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. You want to read Quran or no? Okay. It's fine. I'll just start the Majlis. पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात.
Before we begin, please recite Surah Fatiha for your marhumin and for the marhumin of all of those people that do not have anyone to recite Surah Fatiha on their behalf. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. اللهم اغفر وارحمهم واسكنهم وجوار محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يسينا معه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بحد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نات موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالسخر ميدان أرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد ضل ضلالا مبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of those incidents that is talked about amongst the Islamic circles is the will of the Holy Prophet, whether or not the Holy Prophet wrote a will or did he not write a will. And if he was going to write a will, what would he have written? Because the narration or the hadith, which is known as Hadith al-Qirtas, the incident of Qirtas, where the Holy Prophet asked for paper and pen, this is a very famous narration, this is a very famous incident that has occurred, and this incident is in Shia books, this incident is in Sunni books. And when it comes to this incident, we could refer to Shia books, but what better way to look at this incident and ask the Sunnis questions about this incident than to bring it out of their own book? Why would we want to bring this incident out of their book? Why not recite it from our book? Because to them, our books do not hold any weight. Meaning, if I was to tell them, it's written in my book, it's written in my book, it's written, I don't believe in your book. That's fine. You don't believe in our book, but you do believe in your own books. You do believe that the narrations that are in Sahih Bukhari, for example, the narrations that are in Sahih Muslim, for example, you believe that those narrations are authentic. If you believe that those narrations are authentic, then let's look at what Sahih Bukhari says. Because this narration or this incident of Qirtas, of when the Holy Prophet asked for paper and pen, this incident basically splits. It starts the split between the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt and the ones that wanted to follow their own whims and their own desires. This basically starts, or this incident basically lets us know, Zahiran, who were those companions who really believed in the commands of the Holy Prophet, who really accepted Islam because they believed the Holy Prophet to be a true prophet, and those companions of the Holy Prophet who only accepted Islam because they were going to benefit from it. What is this incident? Sahih Bukhari. In it, he says what? In the last days of the Holy Prophet, he was very ill. And when he was very ill, it's his house, all the companions are all in his house. What does he do? He asks and he says, go bring me paper and pen, or go bring me ink and paper, so that I may write down something for you that if you follow, you will never go astray. Bring me ink and paper so that I may write. Please pay attention to the words. These are the words in Sahih Bukhari. Pay attention, because inshallah, when we analyze this incident, and this is what we want to analyze, I said that there were about 12 or 13 incidents that were the cornerstones, that were the building blocks for Karbala. I said that. And I also made the claim that Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, when he rose up, he didn't rise up because there was no salat being prayed. That Amr bil Maruf was truly and actually the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. That was my claim in the very first lecture, that was the reason Imam Hussein rose up. And today we're going to understand this incident also deals with the wilayat of Amir al-Mu'mineen. How? The Holy Prophet, he says, bring me ink and paper so that I may write, please pay attention to the words, so that I may write down for you something that if you follow, you will never go astray until the day of judgment. Bukhari, he says, in that gathering, all the companions were there. And when the Holy Prophet said this, Umar ibn Khattab, he raised his voice and he said something. What did he say? He says that the Prophet, he speaks nonsense. The Prophet speaks nonsense. We're going to analyze everything. The Prophet speaks nonsense. The Quran is enough for us. The Quran is enough for us. There came a commotion within the house. Some of the companions, they wanted to get the pen and paper. The other companions, they sided with Umar ibn Khattab and they said, no, there's no reason. The commotion got to a point where the Holy Prophet, he himself, he gets mad, he gets angry, and he tells everyone to leave the house. This is the incident. The way that Bukhari writes in his Sahih. Now from this incident, we take out 5 things that happened. 1, the Holy Prophet asked for pen and paper, and it was not brought to him. 1. 2, the Holy Prophet said that he was going to write something, which if they followed, the Islamic Ummah would not deviate. If the Islamic Ummah followed what he's going to write, they would stay together until the end of time. 3, Umar ibn Khattab, he said what? That the Holy Prophet, he's speaking nonsense. The Quran is enough for us. 4, the commotion got to a point where the Holy Prophet gets angry and he tells everyone to leave. Correct? This was the whole incident as recorded in Sahih Bukhari. And this is the incident that we want to analyze today. Everything that happened, yes, the incident is very small, but when you analyze it, you come to understand that Karbala happened because of this. You come to understand that Saqifa happened because of this. You come to understand that Islam fell in the eyes of the rest of the world because of this. Because of this incident. Right? This was the incident that basically split, that showed the split. Yes, Ghadir was there. But even in Ghadir, what did the Munafiqeen do? They came and they pledged allegiance to the Holy Prophet and Amir al-Mu'mineen. So you could not see the split there. But now, in the last moments of the Holy Prophet's life, you can physically see the split. You're physically seeing the split now. Some of the companions, they're saying, no, we need to bring paper and pen. The others, they're saying, no, he's speaking nonsense. This was the incident. It took the Holy Prophet his whole life to preach about Islam. To take Islam to where it came to take Islam past the previous religions. But it was just this one incident that brought back Islam down to where it was. And to this day, you see, Islam today is not looked favorably in the West. Why? If those companions 1400 years ago obeyed the commands of Rasulullah, obeyed the commands of their Prophet, Islam wouldn't be where it is today. It wouldn't be where it is today. Everything that we do in our life, all the decisions that we make in our life, we're making them for what? For our future, are we not? The decision that we make today is for our future. Meaning what? The college that I apply to, I do that why? For my future. If I'm studying in school, if I'm studying hard in school, I'm doing that why? For my future. All the decisions that we make is for our future. The decisions that these individuals made was also for their own future. It wasn't for Islam. It was for them and themselves only. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When looking at this incident, you can't help but wonder, what was it that the Holy Prophet wanted to write down? You can't help but wonder, because the Holy Prophet says, bring me paper and pen so I'll write something down. You can't help but wonder, what is it that the Holy Prophet wanted to write down? We Shias, we say that the Holy Prophet wanted to write down what? That Amir al-Mu'mineen was to be the successor after him. Was to be the successor after him. But when you ask the Sunnis, what is it do you think that the Holy Prophet wanted to write down? What do most of them say? They say, no, the Holy Prophet didn't want to write anything down. He was just testing the companions to see who would obey the commands. He was just testing. First and foremost, he was just testing the companions to see which one of them would obey his commands and which won't. We reject this. Why? Why do we reject this thing? The narration clearly states it's the last days of the Holy Prophet's life. The last days of his life. He's asked for something. In the last moments of someone's life, if someone asks for something, is it just because they want to test? For example, If it's the last moments of my life and I have children and I ask them to bring me something, bring me paper and pen, am I doing that because I want to test them? Or am I doing that and saying that because, no, I want to write something that will benefit them? In the last moments of every individual's life, they want to say something or write something that will benefit their children. Correct or no? Shia narrations, Sunni narrations, they all have a narration that says that the Holy Prophet is the father of this ummah. If he's the father of this ummah and we are his children, if on my deathbed I don't want to test my children, why would the Holy Prophet do that? The Holy Prophet never tested his companions in his lifetime. Now when he's leaving this world, that's when he wants to test his companions? And that too, with paper and pen? 1. 2, they say, even if he wanted to write something, Umar ibn Khattab, it was because of his ijtihad. Ijtihad, mujtahid, ijtihad, these words, they come from the same verb, or they come from the same root. What does this mean, ijtihad? Ijtihad, it literally means that you're sacrificing all of your power, everything that you have, to get to a conclusion. That's what a mujtahid does. They use all their faculties that they have to come to a conclusion. What do they say? Umar ibn Khattab, he used his ijtihad to come to the conclusion that the Holy Prophet should not get that pen and paper. He uses ijtihad. We'll get to all of these because these are the rebuttals that they give. If they give this rebuttal, then you should have a rebuttal to this. Because when you look at this incident, one of the things that Umar ibn Khattab said to the Holy Prophet is that this man, he's speaking nonsense. This man, he is speaking nonsense. Do you all know who used to say phrases like this to the Holy Prophet in Makkah? The mushrikeen of Makkah, when the Holy Prophet was propagating Islam in the early days of Islam, the mushrikeen of Makkah used to say this about the Holy Prophet, that this man, he's a magician. This man, he speaks nonsense. This man, he's delusional. The mushrikeen of Makkah. Now you have a Muslim who's saying this to the Holy Prophet? The same thing that mushrikeen used to say. What does that tell you about the iman of this individual? What does that tell you about the faith of this individual? What does it tell you about the belief of this individual when he's spouting and saying the same stuff to the Holy Prophet that the mushrikeen of Makkah used to say? It tells you what? That faith truly had not entered this individual's heart yet. If it truly did, he would not have said that the Holy Prophet is delusional. He would not have said that the Holy Prophet is speaking nonsense. But it was Umar's ijtihad that led him to not have that paper and pen given to the Holy Prophet. We'll get to that, inshallah. Third, when they say that when it came to the Holy Prophet, yes, he ordered something. But that order that he gave was not an order where if you were to disobey it, it constitutes punishment. If you were to disobey the order, it constitutes punishment. In Islam, there are two types of orders. One order, one command is that if you do not follow it, then you are liable for punishment. There's another type of command that even if you were not to follow it, that command is not Amr al-Mawlawi. That command is not a command where if you don't follow it, you don't get punished. For example, if a doctor was to tell you, you have this illness, you need to take this medication, is it wajib for you to follow that command of the doctor? No, it's not wajib. It's not shar'an, it's not wajib for you to follow the commands of the doctor. But what will happen? If you do not follow that command, what's going to happen to you? The sickness that you have, you'll still have it, or it might increase. Correct? That command is what type of command? That's a suggestive command. He's commanding you as a form of, in a way of suggestion that you take this medication. If you don't take the medication, it's not haram. You haven't committed a sin. Even legally, you haven't done anything illegal. But what will happen? You will have to pay the consequences of not obeying that command, which is the sickness that you have, it'll increase. The sickness that you have will not go away. The second type of command is no. If you do not follow it, then legally there will be repercussions. Islamically, there will be repercussions. And if you all read Syed Tabatabay's Tafsir al-Mizan, he talks about these two types of commands in regards to the sajda of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. He makes the argument that that command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not a command where if Hazrat Adam was not to, or when Hazrat Adam, going to the tree, going close to the tree, that was a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Adam, do not go close to this tree. When it came to the interpretation of this verse, Sayyid Muhammad Tabataba in the tafsir, he says like this command was not that type of command where if he was to go close to the tree, he would definitely be punished. This was a suggestive command. The fact that he went close to the tree meant what? Meant that he would have to deal with the consequences of eating from that tree. And the consequences from eating from that tree was what? That he would have to leave Jannat. He'd have to leave Jannat. And I know a lot of people have this question about Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. He's a prophet. How could he make that mistake? No, it wasn't a mistake. And that's what Sayyid Muhammad Tabatabai, he tries to prove. It was not a mistake. Why? Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, what does he say? I'm creating this individual for what? For heaven? No, I'm creating him for earth. He's going to be a khalifa on earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before even creating Adam, he had already said that Adam is to be created for earth. So that means that Adam needs to be placed on earth. He needs to go to earth. But he needs to go to earth by his own volition. He needs to come down to earth by his own volition. That's it. So what does he do? He goes to the tree. He eats from the tree, which causes him to come down to earth. So was coming down to earth the punishment? And this is what Sayyid Muhammad Tabatabai, he talked about. Coming down to earth could not have been the punishment. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already decided that that's where he needed to be. That's where he needed to be. And in that tafsir, he says there are two types of umur, there are two types of commands. And the Sunnis, they say when the Holy Prophet asked for ink and paper, this is that type of command, a suggestive command. In that if they weren't to obey it, it's not a sin, it's no problem. It's no problem. But how do we rebut that? How do you come to the conclusion that no, this command truly was a command that if you were to disobey it, then you would truly be punished? Why and how in the incident itself, what does the Holy Prophet say? He says, whatever I'm about to write down, if you follow it, then you will never go astray. The phrase of the Holy Prophet, if you follow what I'm going to write down, if you follow it, you will never go astray. That phrase tells you what? That if you don't follow it, you'll go astray. You'll go astray. The fact that he wasn't even able to write it down tells you what? That the people wanted to go astray. There were people who did not want to stay on that path that the Holy Prophet wanted to take them on. And we'll get to who those people were. 1, 2, 3. If we say that the Holy Prophet didn't want to write anything, if we agree to this for a moment, in the narration the Holy Prophet says, I'm going to write. I want to write. And we come to the conclusion that the Holy Prophet didn't want to write anything? Two things. Either I'm right, either I'm telling the truth that the Holy Prophet didn't want to write anything, or the Holy Prophet is telling the truth that no, he truly wanted to write something. There is no third option here. Either I'm telling the truth that yes, the Holy Prophet didn't want to write anything, or the Holy Prophet is telling the truth that no, he did want to write something. What would you choose? My opinion or the Holy Prophet's opinion? The Holy Prophet is saying, I'm going to write. That means what? In Surah Al-Najm, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? He says in the first 5 verses that this man, he does not speak of his own accord. Everything that he says is wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it's wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what he's asking when he's asking for pen and paper, this is inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means what? What Umar said is absolutely wrong. Secondly, if you say that the Holy Prophet is lying, what have you done? You've belied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where he says what? Innama yuridullahu liyuzhibak ankum al-rijsa ahlal bayt wa yutahhirukum tathira. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. What does this verse tell us? This verse basically tells us that every type of rijs, every type of najasat, every type of impurity has been kept away from the Ahlul Bayt. Lying is a type of rijs. Lying is a spiritual impurity. Forget physical impurities. No, every type, even spiritual impurities have been kept away from them. Lying is a type of spiritual impurity. You'd be belying this verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anyone that belies the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what do they become? Kafir. They become kafir. So either the Holy Prophet was truthful or Umar ibn Khattab was truthful. If you say Umar ibn Khattab was truthful, then you've belied the Holy Prophet. If you belied the Holy Prophet, then you've belied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's verses of the Quran. This is the thinking that needs to go into all of these incidents that happened with the Holy Prophet. The incidents that the companions had taken part in. When it comes to this incident, Umar ibn Khattab, he says what? That this man is delusional. The Holy Prophet, he says, bring me. This is something I want everyone to pay attention to, especially the youngsters. Because in school, yes, you have Sunni friends, and they all say that the Holy Prophet was illiterate. Correct? They all say, the majority of Muslims, they believe that the Holy Prophet was illiterate. When you believe that your own prophet is illiterate, what is that going to tell me about you? If your prophet, the prophet that came down to teach you, if he was illiterate, then you think you will be literate? No. No one ever claimed that Hazrat Adam was illiterate. The people of Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam never claimed that Nabiullah Musa was illiterate. The people of Nabiullah Isa never claimed that Nabiullah Isa was illiterate. The people of Hazrat Nuh never claimed that he was illiterate. None of the people of those prophets claimed that the prophets were illiterate. It's only the Muslims that end up claiming that their prophet was illiterate. Only the Muslims. But the majority of Muslims, like I said, they believe that the Holy Prophet is illiterate. Correct? This narration is from Sahih Bukhari. What is the Holy Prophet saying in this narration? Bring me paper and pen, so that I may write something for you. So that I may write. Not bring me paper and pen so that I may dictate something. No. So that I may write something. If he was illiterate, then how is he able to write? If the Holy Prophet is illiterate, how is he able to? Sahih Muslim. The narrations are there that tell you the Prophet wasn't illiterate. Even we have narrations that say that this idea that the Holy Prophet was illiterate, it became rampant in Makkah and Medina. Became rampant. The Holy Prophet, he calls Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he starts writing in front of Amir al-Mu'mineen. The only reason the Holy Prophet did not write, is not because he didn't know how to write. No, it's because he didn't want people to think that he was the one who wrote the Quran. He didn't want people to start thinking that he's the one who wrote the Quran. That's the reason he didn't write. But because he didn't write does not mean that he didn't know how to write. The Holy Prophet, he says, bring me paper and pen so that I may write. So what does this mean? Sahih Bukhari, the narration, it tells us what? That the Holy Prophet knew how to write. Knew how to write. Or else he wouldn't say, bring me paper and pen so that I may write something for you. Umar ibn Khattab, he says, this man is delusional. This man is speaking nonsense. And we already talked about who used to say that to the Holy Prophet. This man is speaking nonsense. a commotion arises, and the Holy Prophet tells everyone to leave the house. Why did the Holy Prophet need to tell the people to leave the house? Why did there become a commotion to such an extent where the Holy Prophet tells everyone to leave? Umar himself, he tells us. Shara Nahju Balagha by Ibn Abil Hadid Mu'tazili, Sunni scholar. He's done the Shara of Nahju Balagha. In it, he has a narration from Ibn Abbas. And Umar ibn Khattab, he's walking with Ibn Abbas, and he asks him, Ibn Abbas, does Ali still vie for Khilafat? He goes, yes, he does. He does. Does he still want to be Khalifa? Yes, he does. Does he think, this is Umar ibn Khattab speaking, Sharh Nahj Balagha, please read it, volume number 2. Does he still think that he should have been Khalifa? Yes, he does. Does he think that the Holy Prophet was going to choose him to be Khalifa? He goes, yes, he does. That's when Umar ibn Khattab, he says that, I think that the Holy Prophet was going to make him the Khalifa in those last days. He was going to write down that Ali should be Khalifa in those last days, so I prevented that from happening. I prevented that from happening. Sharh Nahj Balagha. Why did he prevent that from happening? He himself, he says, because I didn't want it to be a burden for the Muslims. I didn't want it to be a burden for the Muslims, mashallah. He cares more about the Muslims than the Holy Prophet and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala care more about the Muslims than any one of us ever can? How is it that you come to the conclusion that you are looking after the Islamic Ummah when the Holy Prophet says, if you follow this command of mine, you will never deviate? How is it that? When you look at this incident, and you look at Umar ibn Khattab, did he have enough knowledge of the Quran? Because he's the one who said that the Quran is enough. The Quran is enough. The Quran is enough. We have narrations, they have narrations that say what? On the day of Ghadir, what did the Holy Prophet say? He left 2 weighty things, the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. Shia narrations, Sunni narrations, they have these narrations too. But the narrations that they focus on is that the Holy Prophet said what? That I leave behind 2 weighty things, which are the Quran and the Sunnah. Sunni narrations say that the Holy Prophet said, I leave behind the Quran and the Sunnah. Even if we were to take the Quran and the Sunnah, even if we were to take that hadith, that means that what? The Holy Prophet left 2 things. Then why is Umar ibn Khattab saying the Quran is enough? Why is he saying the Quran is enough? Even according to them, the Quran wasn't enough because the Holy Prophet leaves behind 2 things. Whether it be Sunnah or Ahlul Bayt, he leaves behind 2 things. So that means that the Quran wasn't enough. If the Quran was enough, did Umar ibn Khattab know enough about the Quran and its interpretations? Did he know which verses were abrogated, which verses were not? Did he know which verses were revealed in the daytime, which verses were revealed at night? Did he know which verses were revealed in Mecca, which verses were revealed in Medina? Did he know which verses were revealed for which individuals? Did he know about those verses when it came to the punishment? Did he know about all of those verses? That he could come and say that the Quran is enough? You look at the incidents that happened. The first case that came in front of Abu Bakr after the Khilafat was taken. Do you all know the first case that came to Abu Bakr? It was a man, he was caught drinking wine. They brought him in front of Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr, he asked him, were you drinking wine? And he said, yes, I was drinking wine. And he asked him, do you not know that wine is haram in Islam? He goes, no, I did not know. No one ever told me that. No one ever recited me those verses of the Quran which make drinking haram. And I come from that area. Or I come from an area here in Medina where all the people that are around me, they drink. When he says this, Abu Bakr doesn't know what to do. He looks at Umar. When he looks at Umar, Umar's looking back at him, and he tells him, look, Ali ibn Abi Talib, he's the only one. Ask him, we need to ask him. They bring Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen asks him, what's the problem? They say, Ya Ali, this man, he was caught drinking wine. He himself, he says that he drank wine, but he's saying that in the area that he lives in, no one recited those verses of the Quran. So what do we do? Look at the simple solution that Amir al-Mu'mineen comes with. He says, you're troubled by this? You're running the Islamic Ummah and you're troubled by this? The only thing that you need to do is send 2 individuals with this person to his community, back to his neighborhood, and have them ask everyone over there if they know or if anyone recited the verses of the Quran which make wine illegal, which make wine haram to this individual. If the people, they say that no one knew and no one recited those verses to him, let him go. Give him a warning and let him go. What do? They do exactly the same thing Amir al-Mu'mineen told them to do. The first case that came to Abu Bakr. That simple. That simple. A case that came to Umar ibn Khattab, who said the Quran was enough. A woman, while Umar ibn Khattab, he was walking, there was a young man. He says in a loud voice that, Ya Allah, may you decide between me and my mother. May you decide between me and my mother. Umar ibn Khattab, he heard this and he starts yelling at him. Aren't you ashamed that you're talking about your mother like this? And the young boy, he says to him, look, this is what's happened. My mother, she's the one who fed me. She gave birth to me. She fed me milk. Now I've gotten older and she denies me being her son. My father's passed away. She denies me being her son. And she's kept everything that my father had. And she's claiming that everything that she has is from the only brother that she had left. Umar ibn Khattab, what does he do? He brings the mother. When he brings the mom, the mother, she brings 40 witnesses with her from her tribe. 40 witnesses. And they all testify in relation to her. And they all say that she's telling the truth. When 40 witnesses come and they say, no, this person's telling the truth. This is why it's not easy to be a judge. It's not easy. This is the reason that the narration state that when Imam Zaman appears, he's going to judge the same way Dawood and Sulaiman judged. Dawood and Sulaiman. How did they judge? Did they require witnesses? No, they didn't require witnesses. They didn't require witnesses. But 40 witnesses, they agree with her. When they agree with her, Umar ibn Khattab, he tells his soldiers, go take him to jail and go punish him. While he was being dragged to jail, Amir al-Mu'mineen was going somewhere. The young man, he yells out to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ya Ali, please help me. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he tells the soldiers to stop. He tells him what's going on. The soldiers tell him, Ya Ali, Umar, he's ordered us to take him to jail for him to be punished. Amir al-Mu'mineen just tells the soldiers, go take him back. Go take him back. The soldiers bring him back in front of Umar. Umar asked the soldiers, why did you bring him back? And what did they say? They say, Ali told us to bring him back. What does it tell you about your government when your own soldiers don't listen to you? How much power do you truly have? When the soldiers are listening to Amir al-Mu'mineen more than they're listening to you, what does it tell you about your government? They bring him back. Amir al-Mu'mineen comes there by that time. When he comes there by that time, he asks the young man, what's going on? The young man, he tells him the whole story. When he tells him the whole story, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he looks at Umar, he goes, let me decide this case. I'll decide this case. He goes, no problem. Which better person to decide this case than you? He himself, he says, because I've heard with my own ears that the Holy Prophet say that none of my companions have more knowledge than Ali ibn Abi Talib. There isn't a better person, Ya Ali, to decide this case than you. So Imam Ali, he says, bring the woman and bring all those witnesses. All of those witnesses, they all say the same thing that they said to Umar. They said, yes. She had a brother, the brother passed away, and all the wealth that she has, it belongs to the brother. And this young man, he's a liar. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, okay. He looks at her, and he looks at all of them. And he says to them, do you allow me to marry this woman to someone? She says, yes, Ya Ali. They all say yes. When they all say yes, Amir al-Mu'minin, he looks at Qamar, he tells Qamar, go bring me 400 dinars. He brings the 400 dinars and he tells that woman that I marry you to this young boy for 400 dinars. I marry you to this young boy, this young man for 400 dinars. The woman, as soon as Amir al-Mu'minin said this, the woman, she starts to yell and she says, Ya Ali, you married me to my own son. You married me to my own son. Amir al-Mu'minin, he gets angry at her and he says, why did you not accept him to be your son before? Why did you deny him being your son? She apologizes to Amir al-Mu'minin. And what is it that Umar said? If it was not for Ali ibn Abi Talib, I would surely have perished. This famous saying, do you all know how many times Umar ibn Khattab said this in his lifetime? Over 25 times. Over 25 times. If it was not for Ali ibn Abi Talib, I would surely have perished. This man does not even know the rulings of Islam, and this is the man that is claiming that the Quran is enough. Amir al-Mu'minin. And he takes the right of Amir al-Mu'minin away by claiming the Quran is enough. You look at this incident. What does the Quran say about wills? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran, when it comes to siyam, when it comes to fasting, that fasting has already been prescribed to you. Fasting was already written down for you, just the same way it was written down for the people before you. Why? So that you may become muttaqi. Kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Fasting was already prescribed to you. The same way when it comes to the will, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says the same thing. Kutiba alaykum. He starts off the same way, that it was already determined, it was already written down, that if death approaches one of you two, that you write down your will. So if it was already determined, you all tell me, do you all know any other instance where the Holy Prophet does not obey a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Where now, when it comes to this command, he doesn't obey? Yes, that's another story. That is writing a will wajib or no, is it mustahab? That's a different story. But when it comes to the Ahlul Bayt, when it comes to the Holy Prophet, if he doesn't do something but tells us to do it, if he himself doesn't do something but tells us to do it, what will that mean for him? If it was already written for us to have a will, do you think that does not apply to the Holy Prophet? No, it applies to the Holy Prophet first, and then it applies to us. It applies to the Ahlul Bayt first, and then it applies to us. This is why one of the Sunni scholars, they said what about Amir al-Mu'minin from Egypt? They said that I believe Amir al-Mu'minin is that individual who applies the laws of Islam first on himself, then he applies it to others. Amir al-Mu'minin is that individual that applies the laws of Islam on himself first, and then he applies it to others. And you have everyone calling the first Khalif Amir al-Mu'minin, the second Khalif the third Amir al-Mu'minin. This phrase Amir al-Mu'minin is not to be used for anyone other than Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. To the point where there are narrations that say, the Imams themselves, they say that this can't even be used for us. This phrase is to be used for only and only Ali ibn Abi Talib. And it's being used for other people. Because even this phrase was usurped by them. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When you look at this incident of Hadith al-Qirtas, you come to understand, like I said in the beginning, that the companions were not all devout to the Holy Prophet. The companions were not all devoted to Islam itself. And this is where you come to understand which companions took which path. from this incident, we'll get to what happened to the Holy Prophet. And did he just truly pass away because of natural causes? Or no? Was he poisoned by some of these individuals who disobeyed the commands of the Holy Prophet? When it comes to the commands of the Holy Prophet, and this is what I started this lecture off with, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? Where He says, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. It's not right for a mu'min or a mu'min, a believing man or a believing woman, that they should have a say in a matter when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet have already decided on a matter. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet have already decided on a matter, it's not right for a mu'min or a mu'minah to have a say in the matter. If the matter here we're looking at is the khilafat of Rasulullah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet have already decided on this matter that the khilafat belongs to Ali ibn Abi Talib, then no one else has a say in this matter. It doesn't matter if you're the closest companion to the Holy Prophet, or it doesn't matter if you're a wife of the Holy Prophet. No one has a say in this matter. Secondly, when it comes to the commands of the Holy Prophet, we'll get to it inshallah tomorrow, because there was another command that they disobeyed. When it comes to the commands of the Holy Prophet, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Uti'u Allah wa uti'u Rasul. What does this truly mean? Inshallah, we'll get to tomorrow. But when you disobey the commands of Allah, the Holy Prophet, you're disobeying the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you disobey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not safe from hellfire. Those are the commands that take you closer to hellfire. And this is from an aqaidi point of view. But all of us living today, a message for all the youngsters. This is the month of Muharram. The month of Muharram. And I know I've lived in the West. Because we live in the West, what happens? All the sins that are here, they're surrounding us. They're surrounded. We're surrounded by them. The youngsters, I just said that you have to follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Holy Prophet. If you do not follow those commands, you're bound to sin and you're bound to be punished for that sin. One sin that you've been committing, just one sin that you've been committing throughout the year, stop it for the month of Muharram. Stop that one sin, whatever it is. Even if it's as insignificant as you think of as listening to music. For the sake of Abu Abdullah, just stop it. In this month. If you do that and you say, you know what, for the sake of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, this one sin I'm not going to do for this month of Muharram, for these 10 days of Muharram, this month of Muharram, you'll continue that on and carry it to the next month. Why? Because you're not doing it for your sake anymore. You're doing it for the sake of someone that is greater than you. You're doing it for the sake of someone that is greater than you. And when you do it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, when you do it for the Ahlul Bayt's sake, they're the ones that help you. They're the ones that help you. Live your life in that way. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Tonight, we're commemorating what? We're commemorating the shahadat of the companion of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We'll get to that. Why was it that Imam Hussein, he said that neither my grandfather, nor my father, nor my brother had companions such as mine? There's Salman Farsi, there's Abu Zar, there's Miqdad, there's Uwais, there's Rushayd, all of these companions. Yet Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he says what? Neither my grandfather, nor my father, nor my brother had companions like mine. Why? Because when you look at the companions of Rasulullah, you see that they weren't devoted to him. They weren't willing to sacrifice their life for Rasulullah. To the point where the Holy Prophet, there's a companion of the Holy Prophet who's known as Shahid al-Himar. Shahid al-Himar. What does Himar mean? It means donkey. Shahid al-Himar is that person who wasn't martyred for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was martyred for the sake of a donkey. Who was he? A companion of the Holy Prophet. What is that story? The story is that in one of the earlier battles, one of these companions, when he was leaving for the battle, his intention was, I'm going for this battle for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when he gets to the battle, he sees that one of the enemies that's coming towards him, he has a very beautiful donkey. He has a very beautiful donkey. And as soon as his eyes are laid on that donkey, his intention changes. He says, no, you know what, I'm going to kill this individual and take his donkey. And it just so happened that he was the one that was killed. When he was killed, he was given that title, Shahid al-Himar, for the sake of the donkey. He was martyred for the sake of the donkey. These were the types of companions that the Holy Prophet had. These were the types of companions. You look at the people that Amir al-Mu'mineen was surrounded with. The people that Amir al-Mu'mineen was surrounded with. The battle that he went for in Siffin, was it only his devoutful followers? No. The people of Nahrawan came out from that battle. The people of Amir al-Mu'mineen. You look at Imam Hassan alayhi salam. It was those same soldiers that Imam Hassan alayhi salam gathered. They're the ones that injured Imam Hassan alayhi salam. You look at these individuals that Imam Hussein alayhi salam gathered. Each and every single one of them. Each and every single one of them. On the day of Ashur, what are they doing? They're coming to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and they're saying, Ya Abu Abdullah, do you give us permission to sacrifice our life for you? Do you give us permission to sacrifice our life for you? Why did they not say for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because they have that ma'rifat that when you sacrifice your life for the Imam, that is actually sacrificing your life for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have that ma'rifah. The night before Ashur, do you know what everyone was doing? The Hashimi and the Ansar of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, the narration state that the night of Ashur, in either Habib's camp or one of the other companions' camp, everyone had gathered and they had made a plan. Habib, he was supposed to be the leader of the Ansar. Abu al-Fazl, he was supposed to be the leader of the Hashimis. And the plan, it was that Habib, he would take his side flank. Abu al-Fazl, he would take his flank on one side. They'd go and tear through the enemy and they'd meet in the middle. They'd meet in the middle. That was the plan that Habib was talking about. While they were talking about that plan, Abu Abdullah, he comes in and he sees and he hears his plan. He goes, what's going on? And Mullah Abbas, he says, Mullah, this is the plan we have. And Imam Hussein, he says, Abbas, this isn't the plan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. This isn't the plan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. For us tomorrow, there's shahadat. There's shahadat for us tomorrow. When he says this, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he looked at all of the companions and he says, do you all want to see your status in heaven? One by one, he shows it to him. He shows it to him. He gets to Abu al-Fazl and he asks Mullah Abbas, Abbas, don't you want to see your status? And Abu al-Fazl, he cries and he says, Mullah, my heaven is wherever you are. My heaven is wherever you are. If you're on this earth is my heaven. If you're up in the heavens, that place will be my heaven. These are the companions that Imam Hussein had. Tonight, we commemorate whose shahadat? We commemorate the shahadat of Habib. But before we speak about Habib, there's some companions of Imam Hussein that we truly need to speak about. Why? Because there were companions of Imam Hussein that were older than Habib. Habib was old, there's no doubt. But you had companions such as Syed, which some narrations state that he was over 90 years old. Over 90. You had other companions such as Uwais, or Muslim ibn Awsaja, who were also older than Habib. And because we focus so much on Habib, we leave out these companions. Syed, the narration states that he was over 90 years old and he had come from Kufa. When he came from Kufa, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, he looks at Syed and he says, Syed, you're at this age, I don't want to see you get martyred. Syed, he starts to cry and he says, Mawla, I want to give my life for you. Ya Abu Abdullah, I want to give my life for you. Why? Because when I get to the afterlife, I want to be able to tell Lady Zahra that I sacrificed my life for you. Syed, the narration states that he was old. Syed, the narration states that his back was bent. Syed, the narration states that his eyelids would cover his eyes. Syed, the narration states that when he asked Abu Abdullah for help, Abu Abdullah looked at his state, and when he sees that Abu Abdullah might not give him permission, what does Syed do? He takes a bandana and he wraps it around his back so his back could straighten up. When his back straightens up, Abu Abdullah, he starts to cry. And he says, Syed, if you truly want to sacrifice your life for me, then do me one thing. I'm going to start my prayer. I want you to stand in front of me. And if any arrow comes towards me, I want you to take those arrows. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayki ya Siddiqatu Fatima. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. Brothers and sisters, the narration states that Syed, as soon as Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, he says this Takbirat al-Ihram, Syed, he stands in front of Abu Abdullah, and there's one arrow that comes, it strikes Syed straight in the chest. He's 95 years old. It strikes him in the chest. Syed, with all of his might, he says, Ya Allah, but he stays standing. Another arrow comes, a third arrow comes. The narrations, they say that all of those arrows Syed kept taking, he kept taking those arrows until finally Abu Abdullah, he says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As soon as Abu Abdullah says this, that's when Syed falls onto the ground. When he falls onto the ground, Imam Hussein al-Islam, he lifts Syed up and he looks at Syed and he starts to cry. And Syed, he's asked Imam Hussein al-Islam, Mawla, are you happy with what I've done for you? Imam Hussein al-Islam, he says, Syed, not only me, but my grandfather Rasulullah is happy, my mother Fatima Zahra is happy. Syed, what does he do? He looks around at all the companions and he says to all of them that do not leave this man alone. This man is Mazloom. When it comes to other companions, Muslim ibn Awsaja, he's the one who told Abu Abdullah, Ya Abu Abdullah, it's time for prayer. He's the one who reminded the Imam Hussein about the prayers. When his time came for battle, he goes and he shows the might that he had. When he passes away, he falls to the ground, and the first person he looks at is who? He looks at Habib ibn Muzahid, because he was there with Abu Abdullah al-Husayn himself. He looks at Habib and he says, Habib, I have a request of you, I want you to fulfill. Habib, he says to him, I don't have time, I'm going to join you myself pretty soon. He looks at Habib, he says, Habib, it's nothing else, I just want you to do one thing. I don't want you to leave Imam Hussein alone. Why? Because our master is Mazloom. What the people of Kufa did to him is absolutely wrong. Brothers and sisters, what's the story behind Habib? The narrations, they state that when Habib was a child, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, they were walking with the Holy Prophet, and his father, Muzahir, was walking with the Holy Prophet. The narrations, they state that Habib ibn Muzahir, he would walk a little bit behind Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam. Wherever Imam Hussein al-Islam would step, Habib, he would take the sand wherever he would step and he would put it over his eyes. When he kept doing this, Rasulullah, he looks at Muzahir and he says, Muzahir, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and may He bless the mother of this child. That's when Muzahir, he says, Ya Rasulullah, what happened? He turns around, Rasulullah, he turns around, he gives Habib a hug and he gives him a kiss. And Muzahir asks, Ya Rasulullah, what has this servant done? And that's when Rasulullah says, Habib, when he says, Muzahir, you don't know, but every time Hussein took a step, he would take the dirt from that and he would rub it over his eyes as barakah. This is that Habib. Now when it's time for him to give his life for Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, he comes and he asks for permission. When he gets his permission from Imam Hussein al-Islam, wasallam, he goes to the camp of Lady Zainab and he goes and asks for permission from her. When she gives him permission, when she gives him the salam, what does he say? He says, Ya bint Rasul, where are you? Where's your status? And where am I? Where's my status? The daughter of Rasulullah, the granddaughter of Rasulullah, she's the one who's giving me the salam. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Walla'natullahi ala qawm al-kafirin. Matam Hussein.